Hello and welcome to the Comic Book Book Club. I'm your host, Matt Lasik, and I know a lot about comic books.
I'm your co-host, Kendra Forte, and I know nothing about comic books.
This, folks, is episode 24, the penultimate episode of season 1 of the Comic Book Book Club. Yes, I do know big words. Thank you for asking. That was a whole 4 syllables?
Yes.
Yeah.
We can also count.
We can, yep. Not only do we know big boy words, but we also know big boy numbers. We're talking about 2 things today. First and foremost, we're talking about Giant Days, an indie comic written by, I think, John Allison? Yes, John Allison. And assuming that we have enough time left, we will be discussing our thoughts on the Invincible television show, which recently finished up its first season over on Amazon Prime. We covered Invincible, the comic, pretty much like the same amount that was adapted into the first series, or first season. We covered that storyline of the comics a couple episodes ago. I think it was like 17. So check out episode 17 if you want to hear us talking about the issues of the comic that the television show is based off. Right now we're going to jump into Giant Days, issues 1 through 8. So before jumping in, I want to share a little story, because I had seen this cover pop up just across my radar as a comic book reader for many a time. And looking at this, you see a young goth girl with big spiky boots and boxing gloves. And between that and the title, I thought, this is a story about a spunky goth girl that punches giants, because the title is Giant Days. Obviously. And then it wasn't until much later when it was recommended to me, or it won some big award or something. I was like, maybe I should check that out. Turns out it's not about that.
Not at all.
It's about British college students.
Yes. I could not for the life of me remember if they were in Britain or Canada.
I'm pretty sure they're British, because they use a lot of British terms, British slang. Do I know how to double check that? Let me just Google Giant Days and see what the Wikipedia plot summary says. The University of Sheffield, which is located in Sheffield, South Yorkshire, England.
So yes, they are British.
They are British. British people. There's an oxymoron for you. Anyways. No, I can't say that because these are really... So before we get into this, I just want to say, I love this series. Even though it's not what I was expecting, the characters are so well written that it just sucks you in, you know?
I have thoughts on that, but I'm going to wait until the end.
Okay. Right, so... You ready to jump into issue 1?
Let's jump into issue 1.
Okay, we are immediately introduced to our group of protagonists, which I think I call in my notes the gang. Consists of 3 female British college freshmen. You have Daisy Wooten, who is cheery and helpful and naive. I don't know. My brain tried to give me an example of a stereotypical character, but I couldn't come up with any.
A total Hufflepuff.
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah, she's a total Hufflepuff. Then you have Esther de Groot, who is on the cover of the first issue. She is a goth, but she is still a cheery goth, I guess. She is described in her introductory text caption as, quote, interesting, maybe too interesting, and I love that. And then we have Susan Ptolemy, our narrator, who's described as, quote, a common sense silo, and just kind of the mom friend. I think in a later issue she even calls herself the mom friend.
Yeah, she's the only one that has any common sense, and is also not goth.
Yeah, so you've got Daisy, the cinnamon roll, you've got Esther, the chaotic neutral, and you've got Susan, the mom friend, to put it in modern terms. They discuss how they became friends in things that happened not in this issue. Maybe, I'm not sure because I never read the webcomic that this is based on, but maybe the things they're talking about happened in the webcomic. I wouldn't know, and I'm too lazy to look it up. They discuss how they became friends via like conflicts that they all shared, and each and every one was caused in some way by Esther. Susan calls Esther a drama queen. Esther disagrees, so they set a bet. If Esther can go 3 days without causing any sort of drama, she gets to give Susan a full makeover, which is the exact opposite of what Susan wants, because along with being the mom friend, she is frumpy. Is that the right term?
I would say more tomboyish.
Yeah, I suppose. But it's all like short, messy hair and loose-fitting sweaters and jeans. So she's not like... Esther is very like hard into dressing up and being dramatic and eye-catching, and Susan's the opposite of that. So if Esther can go 3 days without causing drama, she gets to make Susan that. The three run into their friend Ed Gemmel, who introduces them to McGraw. That's all we know him by, ever. No one ever calls him anything but McGraw, who is a transfer student to their college that Susan has history with. Bad history. I'll say it right now. McGraw is my favorite character because he is the perfect man.
I love McGraw. McGraw tries so hard.
Yeah, there's multiple times in my notes where I say McGraw does this and then in captions or in caps lock because he is the perfect man. We'll get more into that later. And then there's the cute this series is just so full of like cute little moments and like back and forths that just like but it's hard to describe those in this kind of plot setting. So I'll just my favorite ones I'll read out the dialogue for, but for the most part we're gonna skip over it. McGraw and Susan give each other like the stink eye, and then the girl gang leaves, and Ed turns to McGraw for an explanation, and McGraw just goes, "We're men, which means we never have to talk about this." Fantastic writing. Susan is now in a foul mood and stalks off. Esther heads to the gym to do her boxing, which is why there's boxing gloves on the cover. Totally misleading in my opinion.
Mystery solved.
Mystery solved. And then Daisy goes back to their dorm. A little bit of time passes. Susan comes back eventually and walks in on Daisy doing something. We're not shown her computer screen or what she's doing like below her collarbone. And it's clarified that she wasn't like pleasuring herself, but it's still unclear exactly what Susan walked in on. To get the conversation onto something else other than whatever Daisy was doing, Susan goes into flashback mode, and we learn that she and McGraw come from the same town in England, and that's all we get from her.
It was the shortest flashback. I have never been so disappointed in a flashback.
That's part of the joke. Then they all go to the dining hall to get food, and Susan manipulates Esther's, quote, drama field, which is like the closest that this series has to like someone having a superpower is Esther's drama field. And
it's fantastic.
I
love it. It comes in handy. It's interesting.
It's funny. Yeah, so Susan manipulates Esther's drama field to embarrass McGraw in the dining hall by like dumping a thing full of mashed potatoes and gravy onto his hair. But he manages to like, because he's the perfect man, he manages to like turn it around on its head and keep his cool. And he says something like, "No man wastes a good gravy" or something. And he just like combs it out of his hair onto his plate and starts eating it. And he's like, he's just so cool. McGraw's the perfect man.
Matt has a crush.
I have a man crush on McGraw. I want to be friends with all of these characters, okay? That is like, those things where it's like, if you could bring like one fictional character to life, who would it be and why? And it's like, I want to go into Giant Days and just hang out with these people because they're so cool.
But also, they're like 17, 18.
Yeah, well, I first read this when I was like 17, 18, so.
But would you want to hang out with them now?
I mean, the series continue, like, they actually age over the course of the series.
That's nice.
So, there is a portion of Giant Days when they are the age we are now. Anyways, we also learn in this dining hall scene that Ed is madly in love with Esther, but she either doesn't know or doesn't care. And it's kind of sad. Since Esther lost the bet by activating her drama field, she gives Susan a massage instead of a makeover, which is better for Susan and worse for Esther. It also turns out that the thing Daisy was doing when Susan walked in was watching napkin folding videos.
Yeah, she just loves a good... I don't know if it's ASMR.
It is ASMR. They actually talk about ASMR in reference to the thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's how we learned that little thing about Daisy. We also learn a little bit more about McGraw, that he's, quote, one of those blokes who can fix anything. Anything except his broken heart.
Sad face.
Sad face. We're saying that because I put a little sad face in my notes. And that's issue 1. It's like, I mean, this is the perfect setup for like a slice of life comedy series. You got your main cast, you got their relations, you got their personalities. Perfect. Perfect first issue. Issue 2, the girls are discussing how college dorms spread illnesses like crazy. Weirdly topical for our current situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember my freshman year, my roommate got a cold and I was like, dang it. And then we were both bedridden for like 5 days. Because we just kept giving it to each other. One of us would get out of bed and be like, I'm feeling a little better. And then they'd be laid up in bed the next day. And then the other one would get out of bed and be like, I'm feeling better. It was awful. Esther brags that she never gets ill and that she's only taken like 2 sick days. And the funny little vignette is she's like, I've only taken 2 sick days. The first is when I pierced my left ear by myself and it went septic. The second is for when I pierced my right ear and it went septic. Immediately after those words leave her mouth, a sick dude sneezes all over the 3 of them. And then 3 days later, the whole crew is ill. Daisy is nearly catatonic. Esther is like going through heat flashes, so she's like bundling up as much as she can. And Susan is going crazy because she's addicted to cigarettes and can't get her nicotine fix while she's sick.
This was hilarious. I love when characters are sick, which sounds mean, but you get the funniest conversations when someone is out of their mind with illness.
Ed gives Daisy some shady uppers from maybe Poland? And that is... It's weird how much this is a recurring thing in Giant Days, where someone gives Daisy uppers and she takes too many of them. It happens like 2 more times just in these first 8 issues.
She went to class, which I am really proud of her for.
Yeah, Daisy is like committed to everything she does.
Daisy said, I am going to get this education. Couldn't be me.
Susan starts hallucinating that her cigarettes are talking to her, so she goes to the convenience store to get nicotine patches and runs into McGraw again. As usual, he's being like the perfect chivalrous man in a way that perfectly pisses Susan off. Esther resolves to see a doctor, but all of her normal clothes are contaminated with illness, so all she has left is her, quote, gothic regalia. So in like a big flowy Victorian-era dress and a top hat covered in like skulls and stuff, she stumbles through the halls of her dorms deliriously. She ends up in like some random person's room where people are having like a wine and cheese night, but because she's delirious from illness, she thinks they're doing like some like Jamaican pagan ritual or something involving chicken bones. Very funny. Daisy, meanwhile, is riding her high and is writing a whole novel on a whole typewriter that she got from somewhere.
Yeah, because she's like, I don't even think I own a typewriter.
But unfortunately, she runs out of her mysterious European uppers. And then the next day, everyone's fine. And it's just sort of like funny resolutions. Like, Esther runs into the people from that one room and she's like, thank you for your like magic voodoo illness thing. And they're like, dude, we were just having a wine and cheese night and you broke into our room. So we just kind of put some coats over you and let you sleep.
I have been, in some form or another, all of these people while sick and in college. It has been a wild ride. I have definitely put on a whole homecoming dress to go to the doctor's because everything else was sickly and nasty.
That is very funny. And then, like, the cliffhanger for this issue is that there's this pair of dude bros, like frat guys, that creep on Esther and, like, take a picture of her and say, game on, while high-fiving. And then that's the end of issue 2. Really gross. Issue 3, one bright morning, Susan and Esther return from a night of partying. It was, so Susan is in pre-med, so it was some mixer for, like, the pre-med students, and Esther tagged along in a stolen lab coat because she's Esther. They run into Ed, who is going to the library to escape his awful neighbors that are constantly smoking weed and having sex all the time. Classic college experience.
Obviously.
While there, Ed finds out about this website called BantServe, which is kind of like a BuzzFeed meets like a Hot or Not kind of thing. So like just full of really gross, womanizing listicles. The current headlining article on BantServe is titled Fresh Meat, the 25 Hottest First Years, and has Esther ranking at number 3.
Okay, I know this is gross, but I would be elated to be at number 3.
There's a scene where like they're talking about how they found out, and Daisy says something like, "At least she got number 3. Yeah, that's pretty good."
I'd be stoked. I'd be like, that's gross, and I'm creeped out. I'm skeeved out. However, number 3 out of all the first years, way to go me.
I'm trying to find the... Yeah, so the scene is that Ed tells Susan, and Susan's like, all right, Esther's not having a great time right now regardless, so let's take this very carefully. And then a jump cuts to Esther screaming at her phone, and Susan is saying, Daisy, why did you show her that? And Daisy says, she came 3rd! That's bronze! I've never come 3rd at anything!
That's bronze!
I love these people! Yeah, Esther finds out, and she decides to take it up to the Vice Chancellor of the university, which is like fancy British speak for the second in command. I don't know what the equivalent is at English or American universities.
It's like the dean of students.
Yeah, so she takes it up to whoever's in charge of the student body. It's an old crusty white dude, and he basically says something along the lines of, boys will be boys.
And then, like, suggests that she, like, faxed the boys to say, take it down.
Yeah, like, dude is very clearly out of touch, doesn't understand how listicles work or any of that. We then see the apartment that BantServe is run out of. It's a 4-bedroom apartment that consists of 3 dude bros that actually made and run the website, and Kevin, the only sane one in the apartment, who does all of the cleaning. The dude bros decide to crowdfund, so they have like a fundraising event, and they say that the 10 biggest donors will be given all of the numbers of the girls from the fresh meat list. Super gross!
That's creepy.
Very bad. Creepy. Very bad. Susan, like, snaps and goes full detective mode. We learn in a later issue that she actually spent the summer between what would be high school for Americans and college interning at, like, private investigators. So she does have detective, like, background skills.
You wouldn't be able to tell.
No.
way she carries out this investigation.
Yeah, she basically just goes dumpster diving.
Yeah.
So Susan goes full detective mode, runs into McGraw. McGraw, being the perfect man, gets very upset and says something along the lines of, don't these men have mothers? Which inspires Susan to call these guys mothers after getting the necessary information from Kevin. Which leads to a very funny scene where, like, Esther's all pissed and depressed, and Susan's, like, playing it cool, and she's like, why don't we go into this random law lecture for fun? And so that they're there while these dudes' mothers, like, come into the lecture hall and start yelling at them. Fantastic. Just so funny. So good. During this time, during her, like, full detective mode, headspace, whatever, Susan had also distributed an anti-man, a misandrist zine, using McGraw's picture for the cover. I guess
McGraw does not deserve this.
He's the perfect man. He doesn't deserve this. But, I don't know. They have bad blood for some reason, so Susan wanted to get revenge on him. And then the big cliffhanger for this issue is that Daisy has a crush on a girl. Issue 4. It's Daisy's 18th birthday. God, I'm old.
You're old. I'm old.
We're both old. Daisy's turning 18. So I guess in Britain, you get to go to college when you're 17? Is that normal? I don't remember. How old was I when I started college?
I was 18.
I think I was also 18. So I guess it's not, like, super out of the class. Anyways, we're both old. That's the point of this. We learned that Daisy's new crush, who she's made friends with, is named Nadia. It also turns out that some, like, 13-year-olds found one of the, like, 50 copies of Susan's zine and have made hundreds more to distribute. So now, like, this one-time little, like, revenge/joke thing that she did is spinning wildly out of control and out of her hands. And as a result, McGraw is now hated by every woman in town, which he does not deserve because he is the perfect man. Susan and Esther go home after Daisy's birthday party while Nadia takes Daisy to go clubbing for the first time. Nadia offers Daisy some uppers, and Daisy takes too many again.
Poor baby has no idea how drugs of any kind work.
She's just like,
Prescription
pills?
or non?
She just goes, pills? All of them, please. The less I know about them, the better. Next morning, Daisy comes home after clubbing until 7 a.m., and Esther gets Susan to give more details on McGraw. Turns out that they come from the same small town in England, and that they were like best friends for a while until Susan asked them to I worded that awfully. Susan asked to go on a date with McGraw, and he basically says, "Nah, I just want to be friends," which kind of ruined their friendship. Daisy then arrives back home from clubbing, still high as a kite. And a few seconds later, it's like, "Hey guys, I'm home." And they're like, "Great, you go to bed." And then immediately after her door closes, the front door opens and in walks Daisy's grandmother, who came to surprise her on her birthday. Typical Weekend at Bernie's type hijinks ensue, where Esther and Susan have to like pretend like everything's fine and make sure that Daisy's grandma doesn't find out she's on a triple dose of like strange club uppers. Just fantastic comedy. Susan has now reached like local celebrity status amongst other girls for her zine, so she's got like random girls coming up and asking for her autograph and that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, Daisy asks if she and Nadia could go out on a date, and Nadia says no, and it's very sad. Especially,
it is very sad.
It's like the day after her birthday too.
Because Daisy deserves everything in the world. Because Daisy is so sweet.
Daisy is the textbook definition of a cinnamon roll. She's so sweet and so hardworking. Daisy then goes to sleep for over 24 hours because she was on a triple dose of weird club uppers. And ends up having like a deep conversation about sexuality and new experiences with Esther. McGraw builds some sort of like abstract art thing out of wood to clear his name, and declares a truce with Susan.
I didn't understand that part at all. I was like, sure, dude.
I think that's kind of
crazy.
That's kind of the commentary of like modern art or something. I don't know. Or maybe it's just because McGraw is the perfect man, so everything he does succeeds. And then the big cliffhanger is that the girls and Ed decide to go to the holiday ball. Because I guess in 2015, people were still doing balls.
I'm sure they do those in Britain.
Yeah, probably. What do I know? It's not like I went to parties in high school. What would I know?
You're so sad. That's so sad.
Issue 5. Man, I'm hosting a comic book podcast. You think that's the kind of person that got invited to parties in high school?
Oh, you didn't get invited. That's a different kind of sad. I thought you just didn't go.
Wow. Okay. Issue 5.
I was willing to give you more credit. I was like, oh, he got invited but didn't go. That's kind of sad, but that's whatever.
Do you think someone that got invited to parties would also spend time conceptualizing a podcast about comic books? Do you think that's the same person? The answer is no. Anyways, issue 5. The whole gang are out buying ball clothes. The girls end up going thrifting after getting thrown out of the nicer stops because of Esther's antics. See above drama field, that kind of thing. Meanwhile, Ed and McGraw go and rent suits because they're guys, so it's like, why bother when I can just pay someone money to do it for me? McGraw tries to talk Ed out of pursuing Esther due to how high maintenance she is, which, like, yeah, honestly, I agree.
I see that. I can see Esther being high maintenance.
I think Esther is absolutely too much for Ed. It is just like no dissing Ed, but it is just like, everyone has their capacity, you know? And Esther's just over that capacity.
Esther would absolutely steamroll Ed.
Yeah, Ed would not ever be the same. Esther, being apparently a master of like sewing and makeovers and stuff, manages to take their like kind of crappy thrift dresses and make them wonderful little ball gown thingies. I don't know. What do I know about fashion? I make a podcast about comic books. But they look nice after Esther does some magic with the sewing machine. Daisy sees Nadia at the ball with another girl, and it's kind of sad. And then she talks about how she might be asexual. Not really sure.
Woo, representation.
Yeah, it's just like classic, like, I am an adult for the first time. What's up with me? That kind of like self-exploration stuff. McGraw recognizes Esther's amazing seam work and compliments it because he is the perfect man. This is the hill that I am willing to die on. I will defend McGraw until the day I die. Esther then is like, I'm gonna go do my thing and bed a boy, and then she embarrasses herself and doesn't bed the boy. So now she's upset. Esther's upset because of her failed effort. Daisy's upset because of seeing Nadia, and Susan's upset because she doesn't want to be there. That's me. I'm Susan. That's me. As the night goes on, there's a lot of things that sort of happen in quick succession. So men are gross to Esther, which is an ongoing theme in this comic. Daisy gets over Nadia. Susan goes home with McGraw. Daisy kisses Ed. Esther tries to call her ex, and Ed bonds with Esther but doesn't reveal that he likes her. I just want to reiterate one point in there. Susan goes home with McGraw. Because McGraw finally gets what he deserves after being the perfect man!
Susan doesn't deserve McGraw.
No girl deserves McGraw. No one deserves McGraw. McGraw is too good for this world. The next morning, Esther and Daisy catch Susan doing the walk of shame back from McGraw's place. While they're talking about how Daisy didn't really feel anything after kissing Ed, which could be because she's gay, and could be because she's asexual. Or maybe she's gay and asexual.
Or maybe she just doesn't like Ed.
Who knows? Definitely not Daisy. They all go their separate ways to head home for Christmas break, and Susan ends up sitting right next to McGraw on the train back, because they live in the same hometown. And they both get a mysterious text from an unknown number that just says, "You're dead." Ooh. Intrigue. Issue 6. Esther and Daisy come to Northampton to visit Susan, but she is missing. This leads to a very funny sequence where Esther's like, well, Daisy's a chain smoker, so let's go talk to the other chain smokers, because they'll know where she is. And they go to the nearest pub that has a bunch of smokers outside, and they're like, hey, do you know where this girl is? And one person's like, how dare you, blah, 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 why would we know? And then over her shoulder, a dude's like, oh yeah, Susan. This series is so funny, guys.
The woman, after they leave, goes, you just set our movement back a whole generation.
Yeah, very funny. The dude's basically like, yeah, just go down. She's either going to be in the comic shop or the vinyl shop. So they go, and the comic shop and the vinyl shop are right next door to each other in the same strip mall. And then they go inside, and it turns out it's the same store interior with just 2 doors. And the 2 proprietors are twin brothers, so it's split down the middle, comics on one side and vinyl on the other. Very funny. They learn from these proprietors that Susan has beef with the Shaws, the hardest family in Northampton. As we said before, the summer prior to college, Susan did all this detective stuff with the company she was interning with to prove that the youngest Shaw, named Karen, of course, was a fake faith healer. A faith healer being by the power of Jesus, you are no longer blind, or whatever. That kind of stuff. So Susan did all of this work to prove that Karen was a fake and a fraud. Esther and Daisy then track down McGraw, find out that he was assaulted by some of the hoods being employed by the Shaws to send a message to Susan. And he reveals that the last time he saw her was when she had set up a meeting with Karen at the local nightclub, which is owned and operated by the Shaws. So, that night, Esther, Daisy, and McGraw go to the club. Esther and Daisy get in, but McGraw is turned away. Another very funny sequence where it's the bouncers trying to come up with all these BS reasons to turn McGraw away because they recognize him. And he's like, but I'm not any of the things on the list because he's the perfect man. Yes, so Esther and Daisy get in, McGraw is turned away, but his attention is then caught by Susan, who is hanging halfway out of the window of Karen's 3rd floor office where she had been locked in. McGraw then pulls out his 12-in-1 multi-tool, which he carries on him, because of course he does, and
obviously,
breaks through a window or something to get into the club. Daisy then puts together a plan. Esther is to release the full power of her drama field to create a distraction while McGraw picks the lock to Karen's office. And it works, because Esther's drama field is infallible.
Just completely insane. Overpowered.
It's so funny, though. So yes, they get into the office after picking the first lock, but the office is empty. And there's a second door with like 7 locks on it that leads to the roof. And there's this like big dramatic moment on the roof where Susan and Karen are yelling at each other. And like the setup is that like, oh my god, Karen's gonna throw Susan off the roof. And Susan's like, are you gonna kill me now? And Karen's like, no, but I wanna. And then Karen just kind of lets them go?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, everything ends fine. Esther and Daisy get ready to go home. And then Esther realizes 2 things in quick succession. Number 1, exams are right after Christmas break ends. Number 2, she hasn't been to a lecture since the beginning of November.
Girl mood.
Honestly. And that is issue 6. Issue 7, the gang returns to their dorm after Christmas break ends, but the heating system is broken. That's not really important to the plot. It's just funny.
It was just funny because somebody has a space heater and someone else mentions that all of their clothes are like polyester and will probably burn down the building. Yeah. Hilarious.
They discuss their different study habits, including that Esther does not have any study habits, which like mood, same. Esther then has a panic attack, which like mood, same. It's serendipitous that we're covering this the week before finals. It turns out that despite being an English lit major, which like all you have to do is read and then interpret what you read, she hasn't read any of the books. And
It'd be like that.
She's only gone to classes that have cute lecturers. Alongside that, she took a religion, like a Christianity elective for fun because she thought it would be funny to be a jerk. And she was just like a jerk for the entire time and learned nothing. And now it's final season.
However, I have to say, that is a pretty fun thing to do. Have you ever taken a Christianity class and been a jerk?
I attended a private Christian school.
Yes, we all
from
know
kindergarten to high school.
Religious.
Since then, I have not taken a single religious course, and I will do my best to never take one again.
I took one my freshman year of college just to be a jerk.
Okay. Right. So, Susan has some mysterious reason to leave them. So Daisy puts all of this effort into like organizing Esther's notes and putting together like a study schedule for her. And Esther's like, that's nice. I'm gonna go to a punk concert now. Bye-bye. Which like, Daisy deserves so much better. Come on, girl. You're better than this. Respect your friends. It turns out that this big secret that Susan's been hiding is that she's going out with McGraw again. Which, like, good. Because
yes.
McGraw's the perfect man. And he deserves it. Esther, as a last resort, after, like, getting into an argument with some religious picketers on campus, goes to the on-campus pastor to, like... This is, like, this whole issue is her, like, flip-flopping between, like, God, if you're there, I promise I'll never cheat again. This is like a turning point in my life. Oh crap, is that an opportunity for me to cheat? It's great. It's fantastic. She has this like whole epiphany in the office of the campus pastor and decides to just do her best without cheating, even if it means she fails. And like if she survives the finals, she's going to change her life for the better, which is like really commendable. The following scenes are intercut with little vignettes of Esther trying her best during these exams. So Daisy starts to like dig into Susan's secret, and McGraw encourages her to come clean to her friends. She does, but only after Daisy finds out on her own. So it's just like little, just little like one thing leads to another little. This whole series is full of just these little intertwining vignettes that make for great comedy. There's a bit where Esther's like writing for a lit exam. And she finishes like 2 hours before the end time. She's like, I'm just going to sit here and seduce the TA that's watching us until the time runs out. A week later, Esther gets her exam scores back, which leads to possibly my favorite quote.
This is hilarious. I love this quote.
So Daisy's on her computer pulling up Esther's scores, and she got 100% on all subjects. If you add them all together, it's, God, all these characters are so well written and so funny. I love this series. But turns out that the first exams just don't actually count for anything at this university. So
because that's how college works in Britain, I guess.
I don't know. It's a comic book. So it's, it's a classic thing where like, I did all this work for nothing. It's like that kind of setup. And Esther copes by going on a date with the TA that she seduced during her lit exam. So that's fun. There goes Esther's character development, I guess. All this work of like, I become like a godly woman and I'm going to turn my life around. Ooh, is that a cute boy? Bye-bye. What's character development? What's a character arc? No, but this series does actually have good character development. It just takes a little while to get there.
Just like in real life. It just takes a while to get to where you're supposed to be going.
Yeah. Issue 8. The gang goes ice skating. I feel like a lot of my notes for the start of these issues could just be like turned into like the title of an Always Sunny episode, you know? The gang goes ice skating. The gang commits tax fraud. I don't know. So they're all like discussing Esther's current romantic situation. No one is surprised that she's making poor life choices. It's very funny. There's a bit where like the TA, who's like 3 or 4 years older than all of them, say something like, "Do your friends even like me?" And Esther just goes, "Yeah, why wouldn't they?" And then the camera cuts over to like,
and they're all staring like
daggers. Like the other 5 are just stink-eyeing them from across the ice skating rink. Very funny. Later, Susan and Daisy are hanging out, and Daisy's being like weirdly assertive, for Daisy at least, after Susan like complains about how much she hates snow and winter. Meanwhile, Esther and the TA, I think his name is Ian? I don't know, I just call him TA in my notes.
Yeah, he's just a TA.
Let's call him Ian. Esther and Ian go to some pub or something so Esther can meet Ian's friends. Surprise, surprise, the friends are all like 3 or 4 years older and they're all way more worldly and mature than Esther, and she's just like, they're talking about politics and they ask Esther's opinion. She's like, I don't know.
These people are supposed to be the same age as I am, and I was looking like sitting there reading it like, dude, I don't know.
Well, these people are also all teaching assistants at a British university, so,
anyone can be a teaching assistant. You just have to be good at something.
Yeah, and these people are good at politics, I guess. Or, I don't know. What? Anyways, Daisy has become obsessed with Texas?
She has become a Southern queen.
Yeah, Daisy's B-plot in this is so weird because it waits like so long to explain what's going on with her. The next day, Susan is fully burnt out by Esther's drama, and she goes to get a pep talk with Daisy, who's now like obsessed with sports and lays it all out in like a sports metaphor. Ed then shows up for his own pep talk. Daisy like switches back into Texan mode. It's so weird, but also so funny. Daisy encourages Ed to go join the school newspaper so that he has something to obsess over that isn't Esther DeGroot, which, like, I fully agree. Esther is not good for you, man. You gotta get out.
Esther's not good for Esther.
Yeah. McGraw then helps Susan to get over her, like, snow anger phobia by building her a sled because he is the perfect man and therefore, by extension, the perfect boyfriend. We can all learn from McGraw from Giant Days. Esther then goes to dinner at at Ian's professor's house manor thingy. At first, she like lies her butt off about like how interesting her life is and like.
She read like the New York Times for this.
Yeah,
she was prepared.
She did prep work to lie to this professor, but like he's eating it all up. Like the one thing I'll say about Esther, she's a very entertaining person. She knows how to like work a crowd and be sociable. So this is like her element. So she's captivating attention and getting everyone to laugh. And eventually Ian pulls her aside and is like, "You're embarrassing me." So she's like, "All right, dude." So she then goes to the bathroom and like goths herself all up and comes back out and just talks like a crazy person. And like goes outside with Ian and basically just dumps him and ditches the dinner. And then the professor goes, funniest line in this issue, the professor goes, "Can't he leave instead?" And she comes back. God, I love these characters so much. I can't get over it. We finally learn that Daisy's been acting so wild because she's been binging Friday Night Lights, which I know nothing about, but apparently has something to do with sports in Texas? Question mark?
Friday Night Lights I know it's about football.
Okay. I guess it's about football in Texas?
It's a Southern high school football team.
Okay. So that's why she's been weird. Her condition is cured by Susan and Esther holding her down and, like, throwing her DVD box set out the windows. And it's, like, immediate. Like, her eyes clear and she's like, oh my god, why are all these pennants in my room?
She has, like, bottles of, like, some kind of... I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up.
But she has bottles of something in her room. She's like, why do I own all of these?
It's so fun. Guys, I know I keep saying it, but this series is so funny. If you, like, I think this is the best thing we've read so far for this show, because it's all just, like, there's no, like, heavy, like, real-life connections that we have to make. There's no content warnings about this. It's just, like, trashy.
This is exactly what I want a comic book to be. To be nothing at all about real life situations, just vibes.
Yeah, this is what I wish my college experience was like this. Honestly, this is the ideal. So yeah, I pulled it up after Susan is cured of her strange mental condition. She says, "Why am I dressed sports casual? What are all these pennants? What is all this canola oil for?"
Canola oil, that's what it was. She has like bottles of canola oil everywhere.
Yeah. We then see that Ed is happy at his new position at the newspaper. Susan is happy on her sled that's being pulled around by McGraw. Esther is happy with Ian. Basically, the only person not happy is McGraw, because now he's been shoehorned into having to pull Susan around everywhere.
But he made the sled.
Yeah.
That's his fault.
It's
McGraw's only downside is he has no sight into the future.
The final panel, I love the final panel of this stretch that we're reading so much, because it's Susan just like sitting cross-legged on her sled, just giggling happily, and it's McGraw looking so tired. God, this series has a special place in my heart. I love it so much. And that's the first 8 issues of Giant Days.
I love Giant Days.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's a slice of life, right?
Yeah.
It's a slice of life if your life was already a disaster. It is the most unrealistic thing. There's nothing about this college situation that I related to besides going to the doctors in my homecoming dress.
Yeah, when did I read this? I think I read this I read the entirety of it in a span of like a couple days, I think during my senior year of high school. So I was like just eating up like the flash forward into college thing. And it was a little bit like helpful because like at any point I was like, well, at least I'm not Esther DeGroot in Giant Days.
Esther DeGroot is who I like relate with the most,
mm-hmm.
which is saying something bad about me.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not great that you're relating with Esther, but like, God, this is so good at just pulling you in and making you want to read more. Because every issue has some sort of like cute little to be continued moment, and it's just so engaging. As I mentioned earlier, this initially started off as a web comic. This author, John Allison, who writes and draws for some of the issues, has like a whole mini universe that all of these stories are set in. So Giant Days, his previous webcomics Bobbins and Scary Go Round, a series called Bad Machinery. There was a recent series that was written in the same universe about like a washed up child, like a Nancy Drew type child a detective that like is now in her late teens and like doesn't know what to do with her life. I forget what it's called, but it's very good. It came out very recently. That's set in the same universe. It was originally a webcomic in this universe, and then it was picked up in 2015 by Boom Studios, who we've talked about before. They're the same publisher behind Lumberjanes. It's fantastic. This series goes on for 40-some issues. 54. I was wrong. It goes on for 54 issues. There's a couple like holiday specials and annuals. I cannot recommend this enough. I know like a lot of our stuff has been very superhero focused or like very interconnected universe stuff, but like this is just like a fully contained story, a fully self-contained story. It's got great humor. It's got character development. They like age and grow as time passes, which is super rare for comic books. They end up like getting married and graduating college, and it's just I cannot recommend this enough. You have to read Giant Days.
It's like reading the book and then watching the movie, but if the book and the movie were college life. At one point I was reading this and I was like, I can't wait until I go to college. And then thought, wait, I am in college. I am deep into college.
Yeah, that's why I binged all of this at like 3 a.m. during my senior year of high school, because I was like, this is what college is like? This
is like reading the book of college, and then going to college is like the movie.
College, the movie, coming to theaters this summer.
It's disappointing and nothing like the book.
Well, luckily, you can always reread Giant Days to experience fake college.
I don't remember being this much of a mess my freshman year of college.
I never really left my dorm my freshman year of college, so I was never given the opportunity to be a mess. So I managed to sidestep that pretty neatly.
I was giving all the opportunity possible to be a mess. I was young. I was in New York. I was on my own for the first time. Mm-hmm. And it didn't happen. It wasn't like this.
Yeah. But, yeah, so that's Giant Days.
But thumbs up all around.
This gets a hard thumbs up from us here. All right. Let's talk about Invincible. Big spoiler warning. If you're a regular listener, it will already have been spoiled, because the first season of the TV show covers about the same as what we read in our previous episodes. We're just going to jump into it. First off, the praises. Fantastic voice acting. The main cast is wonderful. There's like little cameos everywhere in the voice cast. J.K. Simmons is just fantastic as Omni-Man.
I love Sandra Oh as Debbie.
Yeah, she was fantastic as well. The characterization, like the translation from page to screen of the characters is fantastic. The fight choreography is great. I'm a big animation nerd, so I like this. This is done wonderfully. The one small nitpick I have with the animation is that a lot of times, if there was like a big crowd shot or something unimportant going on in the background, instead of doing like 2D, it would be like CG, like low poly CG. And it was like pretty obvious in a way that was at some points distracting. I think the worst it got is when there was like a alien invasion and like the forefront of the army that was actually like doing fisticuffs with the heroes was all actually drawn out, and then like everything behind the first couple of lines was all just like CG alien army, and there wasn't really any sort of like gradualness to the transition, so it was very jarring in those scenes. And in most like crowd scenes where it's just like characters talking while people walk by in the background, it's like totally excusable unless you're looking for it. But yeah, I understand why they did it, because it's way more, it's more time effective and cost effective to do it that way, but still. And then my other it's a mixture of both a praise and a negative thing for me. So there's a character that we didn't really get the chance to get into when we were talking about the comic book, named Amber, who has a much more major role in the show. Amber in the comics is a very short-lived love interest for Mark. She's just like
shows up one day.
Yeah, she's like a stereotypical blonde high schooler, and she's like, "Yeah, you're cute. Let's date." And then Mark's like, "The reason I've been late all the time is because I'm invincible." And she's like, "Ew, I don't want to date you anymore." And then that's all we see of her. In the show, she has way more. She's like an actual character in the show. They also made her a woman of color, which like yay representation. Show Amber is like ambitious, she's caring, she does all this volunteer work, she's got like clearly set standards for what she's looking for in a man. She figures out like really early on that the reason Mark's constantly late is because he's being invincible. So kudos to that. I think show Amber is way more of a better character than comic Amber. Problem is, in my opinion, the show spends way too much time focusing on whether or not Amber and Mark are going to continue dating, because they almost break up so many times, and it's only like 8 episodes long. Because the whole scene where Omni-Man kills the Guardians happens at the end of episode 1. So then there's all this tension built up, and they do a great job of like ratcheting the tension and like relieving it in little places here and there, and like setting up for the finale. But when you cut from that kind of scene to Mark and Amber sitting in a car being angrily silent at each other, I just don't care.
I cared so much. It's because the alternative was just so much tension all the time, so much blood, so much gore, so much of everything happening. And it was nice to just relax with a little, ooh, will they, won't they?
I suppose I can see that. I guess in response to that, my rebuttal would be that there's too much of the will they, won't they. If it was just like tension breaking by showing them like hanging out and having fun together, I would be fine with that. But it's because it's like Mark is late, Amber's mad. He says, "I'll be better." They go out again. Mark is late again. Amber's mad again. He says, "I'll be better" again. They go out again. Mark is late. Amber's mad. Blah, 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 blah. It's just the same stuff in different settings, like 5 times in 8 episodes. There's just it just loops so much.
Yeah, they could have done more with their relationship in total, but they didn't have a lot to work with, considering Amber wasn't a character.
Yeah, considering it's like almost entirely new stuff for that character, they did not have much to go on. And for the most part, it's like there are scenes where like shot for shot, line for line, everything is just translated directly from the comic onto the screen. That's partially because Robert Kirkman, who wrote the comics, did write for the show as well. And as a comic book nerd, gotta give praises for that. I love it when it's like, he said the line! He said the thing! But I still give Invincible a thumbs up. I'm very excited for seasons 2 and 3, which have already been confirmed. I don't really want to do number scores, because...
No, we're just doing thumbs up.
Yeah, you know what? We haven't really done many ratings, but I think from now on out, that's how we're going to do ratings. So, Giant Days gets 2 thumbs up, Invincible gets 1 thumbs up, Zack Snyder's Justice League gets 2 thumbs down. And that's how we're going to do it. Right, business time. Next week will be our final episode for Season 1 of the Comic Book Book Club. As we are college students, summer break is coming up, and we aren't really in a position where we'll be able to get together and record over the summer, so we're going to go on a pretty extended hiatus for a while. We will have a summer reading assignment, and there may be 1 or 2 solo episodes that come out if one of us feel particularly inspired someday, and maybe there's even a crossover episode with another podcast? What? Kendra, I think I forgot to tell Kendra about this.
You did.
Right. Well, I don't want to spoil too much, so keep an eye on our Twitter at CBBC Pod for more details on that. Our summer reading assignment, I'm going to do a big reveal. We've talked about it a whole bunch. It was the first like big summer crossover event. It's one of the most influential comics in the medium. We are doing Marv Wolfman's Crisis on Infinite Earths from 1985. This was, if you want like a brief summary of it and why it's so important, you can go back to one of our earlier episodes, episode 4, Timelines and Crises in Robin's Oh My. But very briefly, Crisis on Infinite Earths was the result of Marv Wolfman and DC Editorial being like, all right, so we've bought all of these smaller comic publications, and we own their characters, and we've established them in like a bajillion different timelines. But this is too much for any new readers. So Wolfman was like, all right, check this out. I'm going to take all of these timelines, and I'm going to put them into one, and make all these characters live on the same planet. Boom. So it's one of the comic events that like I'll just come back to every once in a while and reread. It's very beefy and there are a lot of characters, so this like if you need to Google someone, go ahead and do it. You will not be able to if you're new to the comic book world, you will not be able to go in blind with this one. So go ahead and like Google any characters you want. It's a lot. We're gonna do our best to. This will probably be a 2 or 3 parter because it's a lot. I do want to do my best to like go into detail with it, and we're probably gonna have to be like, all right, pause real quick. Here's this character and why he's important to the story. But it's still very influential. I'm very excited to talk about it. But that won't be until like late August. So keep your eyes and ears out for that. We will, again, have another episode next week, but that'll be our last for a while. So, if you want to keep an eye out for updates, if you want to talk to us about anything, if you have suggestions, questions, comments, stuff like that, you can tweet us at CBBCPod on Twitter. That's at CBBCPOD. Or you can shoot us an email at cbbcpod@gmail.com. I've been your host, Matt Lasik.
I've been your co-host, Kendra Forte.
And until next week, Excelsior!